Hello, everybody. Again, if you're on Twitch, this follows right away. If you are watching these on YouTube, and I don't know when you watch them, this presumably is episode 37 because I'm recording them back to back off a long stream. I might be wrong, I hope I'm not. So, in the previous stream, which hopefully you only watch half of, because the first half was probably good, the second half was like kind of a little bit of a waste of time. We set ourselves up to be able to do some development, and I discussed what I think of like separating the um, separating the offering context from the consumption context. We want to debug in the consumption context and so on. Now we actually get to do some scripting, and somebody in chat was saying just set up VS Code debugging thanks to that coffee break. So you didn't have, like, you're using VS Code, but you didn't have it hooked up to Maya for debugging before, is what you're saying? Because if you didn't, and this is the first time you have a live debugger attached to Maya, then you're in for a treat. Your exploration and your debugging is gonna go a lot faster. And I've said that before, but I never shown it because I was writing very trivial things. But then I decided that I wanted to show it because I think it's important. Like, too many people debug by printing, and it's like you should always have a debugger attached. Well, not always, obviously, but you should really know and make the best out of a debugger. And some people say that, like, if you have tests, like good testing, you don't need a debugger. The scary thing is that some of those people are on a language committee. BS, absolute BS. Knowing your debugger is gonna be one of the best investments. So let me merge these two tabs for a second, because okay, there's this thing where if you divide horizontally like that, then it doesn't let you resize any longer. Don't ask me why. I found more than a handful of bugs while setting up this stream. Uh, so I would like, and I'll explain why soon, both a node editor and a script editor together. Okay, this is not too bad. Print for life. Print is okay. I mean, I could probably go on for a couple hours about why you want both. You want things like you want loops. You want IO. You want to be able, when it's reasonable and possible, for things that are long lived. So for big projects, you want for things to translate to text reasonably well if you can, or have inline displaying of things. Text them displaying the details of something contextually are actually really important, especially for profiling. But printing is not debugging. It's just don't do it to yourself. So, preaching out of the way, for me, this is midstream, so this is normally the stuff you would hear at the end of a stream. We got this beautiful thing running now. I can stop that. The Python debugger, actually, because Python is so live all the time, can actually take a fair amount of changes to stuff and still be alright. So the first thing we want to do is, I've talked about figuring out what things we want to export. Now, and if you've seen me in previous scripting episodes, you know that I like sort of functional stuff in Python. I'm not gonna explain like generators and iteration and things like that. If what yield does in Python is unclear to you, then maybe you can watch those. I'll touch on those things very briefly. But what I want to get out basically is something that can, given a component, recognize what is inside that component. And these, I don't know, this might take us like just one stream, it might take 2 or 3, but we'll go for it. So the first thing we want to do is something that can answer the question, is this a component? And the other thing we want to do is we want the context of sorts, right? So you can just randomly go and, am I recording? Tell me I'm recording. Yes, I am. You can't just randomly go and like imagine that Maya will magically know, you know, hey, here's your rigs and here's your components. So the first one we want to do is a rig iterator. Now, that means because we're using standard nodes, that there's no way for Maya to know when something is a rig, right? So you gotta that's where conventions come into play. So we could say that given the consumption context is gonna reference this node, and that reference is gonna have a name, which is gonna be the name of the character, and maybe a namespace to contain the DG nodes, and maybe I'll explain why that is necessary at some point, and something underneath that is always, no matter what, gonna be called rig and nothing else. So because we're using just factory nodes, you could do your own node type, and that's normally what I will do. But you know, I don't want to start writing trivial C++ nodes for something like these. We say programming is not going to be strictly necessary. So let's say that our agreement is something is a rig, something is a control rig. If it's called rig, and if it is something under, you know, under an object that is under the root, we'll say that's, you know, that's our agreement. That's what we say this is. So this is sort of like what maybe TDD will be like. But it's what it really is usage code first. Now we're saying this is NIPS and we want to be able to quickly test things, right? So we're gonna say, we're gonna write something that tells us if something is a control rig. So snips is control rig, that's gonna be the name of our function. Now it needs to be passed something. And what we could pass it reasonably is an M object, right? As a type. So we're just gonna call that mob. Now we need to get that mob from somewhere. So for now, we're gonna take the easy way out and just make it come out from our selection, the first object that's selected. That's where you want to, you know, have a little bit of an API or whatever. Chat, let me know if the text is readable. I'm gonna, like, while it's here, I'm gonna enlarge it just a little bit. So what do we want out of that is, and I wish, oh, so there's a secret other thingy that now I can reach. That's great. I love that. So what we want to do is from Maya.api import OpenMaya as on2, usual thing. We want to get, and these I've done a million times in stream, so I'm not gonna repeat everything. And global is where the selection is. Get active selection list, tempted to say, and OM2 is wall bound. Then if so dot length, so if there's anything that's not 0, we can say that our M object mob is gonna be equal to cell dot get the pen. No, these are typed so many times that these are actually, I'm not rusty about these. And so start with mob equal none, and then we can go if mob. I'm so inclined to type C++, honestly. So these should actually, no, don't do that. These should actually error when snips is control rig. Hit object has no attribute is control rig. That is great. That's what we want. It means that all the code before is fine. Now we implement these. If you ever heard or read about TDD, it's to some extent this is what they recommend, which is, you know, write a test first, make the test fail, then implement the stuff that makes the test succeed, validate your expectations, make it happen, yada yada yada. I think TDD, especially towards units, is kind of rubbish. This is, you know, TDD is kind of like stolen it a little bit. This is called interface first, and it's the notion of writing your usage code when you do something that has usage, writing your usage code before you write the guts of the usage code, so that you get a general idea for the shape and flow of it, and then you implement the guts of it and see if it works out. You explore a little bit, you toss away the things you don't like, you keep the things you like. That's how good code emerges. And later on, I'll actually link an article that I like very much. But for now, first I would like us to at least have something like that. So, sorry, something implemented. The first thing I want is to implement is control rig, and it should take an M object. So I need Maya from here. So from Maya.api import open Maya, and I want the horrifying thingy here like that as OM2. Because the other one is just like, this is the real place where the Maya stuff is. So for me to get auto completion with the linter and interpreter that I've set, I need to import that. Otherwise, it won't execute the one that's just called plain open Maya that is actually got functionality in it. There's hacks to work around it, but I don't like them. So it's control rig. We said the first thing we want is to get a functor to attach to it. Onto MFN dependency node. Actually, MFN DAG node, because we're also saying I want this thing to fail hard if anything is even remotely not as expected, right? So I'm saying one of the parts of like that must be true is that this must be a DAG node. This must be in a hierarchy, right? So I'm gonna attach DAG node functor, and if this fails, then it's not a DAG node. It's, you know, it's a DG node that has no hierarchy presence, and it should not work. So why is this not auto completing for me? This is really bothering me. So is it? See, this is a lot worse than what I got in very recently, and this is really bothering me, but whatever. Because I don't have autocomplete now. That's really bad for me. Pardon me. Tempted to move this one up, because this might not be picking what I expected to pick. Why? Anyway. The other thing I need to do, and this is on another screen, is bring up the SDK, because I'm super rusty on some of these things. The SDK documentation. So MFN DAG node inherits from MFN dependency node. Python 2 MFN DAG node. Get me MFN dependency node, and there should be a full name. Like if I had auto completion, this would be a lot better. So let me. Okay, import. Why? So it's finding the import correctly. Let me see if it's changed its mind. Okay. No, still doing, like, still playing silly buggers. On2.maya module? Whatever. Nothing is going my way today. It's alright. Open Maya Pi 2, everyone 2. Maybe I missed that. Maybe I completed something wrong before. Nah, whatever. Doesn't matter. We will prevail anyway. So MFN dependency node is what I want. So I'm gonna put this in here, just so you know what I'm looking up. Come on, close. Okay. I remember full name. No. Absolute name, is it? Returns the absolute name of this node. Is full namespace paster starting at? No, so it's just name. And it is set name, and it's a function call because a property will be too easy. Yes. So fn.name equals rig. This should probably be a constant, but I'm not going to be bothering with that. So is named correctly. This is the part where I'd like to type out my assumptions. Is named correctly is fn name equal read. Now we should be able to get, so this is the part where, so mfn dag node doesn't really have a parent thing. Sorry, mfn dependency node won't have a parent thingy, but maybe mfn dag node does. Cool. So has parent returns true if the specified node is a parent of this one. No, we just want parent, which is parent count. Oh, this is if it's an instance, isn't it? Yeah, is parent of parent. So gets me an M object, returns the specified parent. So yep, that's what I want, nothing else. Protect the function of my pilot so to completion in PyCharm because no problem, it doesn't. Yeah, there's, so it's called openmy_py2 because of legacy reasons and avoiding clashes and conflicts and stuff like that. Somebody at Autodesk explained it to me, so they had to do what they did. If you look at the actual OpenMaya file, it will basically generate a dictionary, like a safely mapped thingy namespace wise from these, right? And these has the actual contents. So if you include these directly, you're good to go. But technically they want you to, in case they need to add other initialization stuff to OpenMaya 2, which is kind of like the kickstart module for this module, which contains the guts of it, you know, they prefer if you use that one. If you use charcoal, you're not gonna have a lot of these problems, but the new charcoal is pretty great, charcoal editor, but I don't think he's implemented the debugger yet. But yeah, Chris Durbury, if you don't know charcoal, look up charcoal editor. It's like, it's not very expensive and it's great. It now pretty much looks like an Electron editor like VS Code. Anyway, so parent. Now what does this return when there's no parent is our question, right? So I would say parent. I would explain parent to be the word, and I forget if word has a special type. I think it does, but it also has a special name. So can I do that? So this is the part where I like having a debugger, because I can just do something like that. Yeah, someone is saying I'm on charcoal too. Fantastic. Yeah, Chris. Some time ago I was talking to Chris, and he was saying that he was working on a massive, like, revamp, and then it came out like a month or two ago or something like that. He's pretty great, and like the first charcoal was a big improvement over the standard editor. Charcoal 2 looks really good. So now this is the part where you go like, okay, it's kind of neat to have a debugger, right? Because now it's telling me return true unused variable. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if you're unused. I just want to attach a debugger. What I can do is with something selected, like parent there might fail. I don't care for failures just yet. I don't know if they will crash. Like, I should just get some sort of error and that's it, but you never know. This being my channel. So I want to run these attribute error module as no attribute is control rig, because I need to reload. That will make sense. I am not mad at you. Type error, parent takes exactly one argument, 0 given. So what? Really? Okay, so does it want the index of the parent in case it's instanced or whatever? Yeah, it wants the index. Yeah, fair enough. So that, like, it might seem confusing because you think like, oh, you know, it's like an object should only have one. Like, if an object is instance, it can have multiple parents. So yeah, it's, you know, fair assessment. You might want that argument. So okay, this is not crashing or failing, which is, you know, not too disappointing. F5 should attach the debugger if I remember my shortcuts correctly. Yes, I do, which is surprising given how everything else has gone today. No, it doesn't. Has it? Is it? So pose, don't pose. Is control rig like is it like does it not like the breakpoint on return? Is it not running what I'm telling it to run? Okay, so now it's stuck, which is how it should be. See, it's not refreshing here. That really bothers me. Like, I do not love that. This is your continue, which basically runs everything. Then you step over, step into, and step out. Most of the time, you're okay with step over, which basically keeps going through the lines. If you get to a function called step over, it will keep moving. Basically, in the context you have, it will move line by line. Sometimes you want to enter the function that you're calling. It's not the case for us now. That's when you use step into. Could not load source to retrieve source from Maya console. Do not care for that. What the heck is going on? I am having a horrible time right now. I'm like seriously tempted to just cancel the stream as it stands. All of this crap was working perfectly fine yesterday, and now it's not. Why are you doing this to me, Maya? We're in Python. PYC, yeah, it's fine. I don't care for that. I don't even want to see it. So it's not Python remote attachment. Fine. So okay, it's lost control. Okay, now you're okay with it. Whatever. So is named correctly now. Like this is gonna be. I don't know of a way. Can I? No, I need another shortcut that I don't know. Okay, there you go. I can zoom the log and then unzoom the text. See, this is the one thing where it's better than Visual Studio when you want to stream. Now it might be somewhat readable. Now this is kind of, you know, cool in a way. Like this is where you get all the variables, if mob. Now the marker is here, so it's named correctly. Like it hasn't happened yet. If I advance, then it goes like it's named correctly true. So you get the idea, no? Hopefully. So when you're at a point, normally it's... Oh, I don't want all exceptions. Don't do that. That's pretty horrible. An object has no attribute parent. That's what? Oh, because it returns... Yeah, that's fair enough. See, there you go. This is where I like having a debugger, because I'm calling that. But what I want is, you know, attach the function. I'm not gonna get auto completion, am I? No. So it's the functor that has parent, and when you do parent, it returns the M object. That's plenty fair. The functor itself, can you do, what is it, set object, is it? Yeah, object to type path. Yep. So fn dot set object, it should be able to duplicate itself to fn parent. So this should be proper mob. Then we want, nah, that's crazy. Let's do it a little bit cleaner than this. It's like it's too dirty. Like even if it's, you know, it's a dirty stream, but not that dirty. So parent equal function parent equal on2 mfn diagnode. Parent should probably be a little bit more explicit. Terrible naming convention, we don't care, we're just trying to get things going. Fn parent, parent mob. So this should get us the parent object. It bothers me. It's like the naming convention is wrong and it bothers me too much, so that's okay. Parent fn dot no, yeah. So this is the one that I expect to be word. And please attach. Let's see if you can do it. Maybe that shortcut does not do the same thing as the play button, so it's halting. Pardon me. Hiccups. So blah is now cool. So that's getting the parent. That is very cool. That is what we wanted. Now what we want is granny mob. This stream is going places. Equals burn dot parent. I could do this so much cleaner than these, but for now we're exploring. Equals that node granny mob, and it'll fail if it needs to fail. Like if you're filling something that's not deep enough, whatevs. And this is gonna be granny FN. And off stream, I'll actually make sure that this is set up correctly for the next stream. Is named correctly granny FN. It's keeping the breakpoint there, which is kind of cool. So if I run this again, error. Fair enough. MFN diagnode is not defined. That is a fair assessment, Maya. I'm okay with that. So word. See, it's like it's reserving that name. I thought it was the case. Now we don't want to get too complex because I imagine you could bump into a case like if somebody is like really nasty. Like we don't want to contemplate malicious users trying to derail your work intentionally, because if you were to put something that is, you know, called rig under, you know, somewhere here, you put something called rig, and swap you put something called word, you could fool this mechanism, but you go like really like, I mean, you're doing it on purpose. We don't like you. So is to from word equals grandfather name equals I actually like this better, equals word. So return is named correctly, uses Python, and is to from word. So we'll go a little bit idiomatic. Now these I expect to be correct. Okay, true. So whereas something lower anywhere else I expect false. Now we don't want this to fail, so what happens? Parent, like for anything selected, parent always returns something, right? Because you always have word. So these should only happen, you know, if is named correctly, then do these. Is to from word starts as false, because we want the one scope up. Then get the parent, and if this is not at the necessary depth, this parent, like the first parent we get, like if these were at the you know, shallowest possible level, at the shallowest possible level, the parent will be word. So if parent, like this is terrible. I mean, I should have written an iterator, make sure it's 2 up and then check for that, but whatever. So if parent fn dot name is word different than word, then we do that, and we alter the value of is to from word. So what we want to do now is maybe test a bunch of things, and so random stuff, and then go for, let me think for a second. So cell should be iterable actually. Now for I less than so the okay. Sorry. For I in range cell dot length mob equals so dot get depend node I. Does that work? Invalid syntax. Of course it is invalid syntax. Okay. So someone probably had a heart attack because I've been using I single letter variables. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure it had very basic like resilience. So it only says true for the first thing we selected, which is rig. It says false for everything else. So I think we're good on that. Now we're gonna keep that. So now we have a function from which we can tell if something is a control rig. Now another thing that we're interested in, and this is gonna be, I'm not even gonna debug this because this is gonna be very simple, is something as a component, right? You will want to know. And it's gonna be, so it's control rig with mob. It's this is, you know, this is Python, so you don't really have overloads for functions, but we're gonna start with very simple names for now. How long has this one been going for? I don't know, half an hour. Not much code written for half an hour anyway. So if something is, we want to know if something is a component. Now these are not great names because you might want to go is component from Dag-node or something like that. Because these not being C++, you cannot overload by argument type, which means you only get to use a name once. We're not gonna bother yet. Now this should be relatively simple. So if something is a component, right, the whole agreement is control, yeah, okay. It is gonna be under something called rig, or even better, whatever is the parent is gonna respond to his rig, because for now we only allow components in there, and the name is gonna end with component, right? So underscore component, in fact. Let's do that. So fn equals om2 mfn dag-node, because it's still, you know, only dag-nodes. It's a dag-node only club. It's a discriminatory club. I feel like we're facilitating dag status discrimination here. So fn.name different than word. No, it can't be, it doesn't matter. So what do we want? Now the first thing we can do is under rig is equals to is control rig running on the parent. If is under rig, then return fn name. Do I remember right? Ends with? Tempted to say yes. So if something, you know, get a functor, if it is under the rig, if the not under, yeah, is under rig means, you know, is control rig the parent? Yes. You know, if it's true, then we get fn name ends with component, and that is our return. Otherwise we return straight up false. So our test here, like iterate, that's why, you know, I don't feel like I need TDD for things like this. Like once the code works, I mean, it just works, right? You don't need that test to be there forever. So you don't necessarily need the test suit if something is like axiomatically right or wrong, and you know everything that comes into play, all the factors. It's not a bad idea to have the suite of tests there, but whatever. Anyway, so let me select a bunch of things. We want to go is component, right? So we can do is comp equals that, and so fine, we'll print something just to have a pretty print format. Is this readable, chat? Help me out, because I don't want to start writing stuff and then everybody goes, I can't see that for crap. Format, the second one is gonna be is comp, and the first part is gonna be mfn diagonal. Let's see if this crashes Maya. Dot name. I am, in fact, right now I don't trust Maya a lot, so I'm gonna put that in a file just in case. You never know. So what we got here takes exactly one argument, 0 given. What did I not give where? Parent. Oh yeah. Parent, fool me again. That's fair enough though. In this case, Maya is right. Like it's okay. So we got a bunch of things going. Let's have a look. Okay. Sure, zoom from the middle of God knows where. We got rig is false, component true, output false. Okay, so this seems reasonably resilient. It's readable, cool. This seems reasonably resilient to, you know, messy stuff. So we now know if something is control and if something is component. Now the next thing, the next question we want to ask is, and we only want to ask it to a component. So that's why I'm saying, don't write code defensively, like where everything can work in every context and can defend against everything. Write chunks and, you know, and like succeed your way to something reasonable. So in our case, only something is a rig, you know, we have the function we use the right away. Only something is a component, then we're gonna look at the input and output. Now we've divided thing with control and guide, and the guide is entirely internal. Yes, and the input and output are straight up under the component, which is great. So this is something that I'm gonna, you know, I knew I would have regret this, like allowing something other than attributes under the output. In this case, I'm allowing transference, but it's not gonna be too bad. It just means that I have one more iterator than I need to. So what we've done, again, because we don't have special types, again, we want some sort of, you know, standard to respect. We're gonna say, yes, the user can foil our plans very easily, but we're not, you know, we only have so much time on stream. We're gonna say something ends with input when output and only ends with, then, you know, we're gonna say it's an input or an output. So this is gonna be the has input, it requires mob, def has output, and it requires a mob, not C++. No, that auto indent. Oh. So has input and has output. Okay. What do we want to do from here? Has input. So what I'm wondering now is, like, do I want, because we could do something that gets the input and, you know, you always run it, and if it gives you none, it means it doesn't have an input. So Yeah, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna call them find input and find output. Oh, you know what? You can have more than that's what I was saying before. Okay, I got it. So one of the things we want is, because we've allowed, we allow multiple inputs and outputs, and we are allowing things to exist under an output transforms, which I'm sort of regretting, as I've mentioned. We want something that iterates over anything that could be an input or an output, because you could have several. So that means that this has got to be a yield. And if you don't know what yield does, I think I did explain it a lot, but basically it's a stateful function. So if you were to do something that returns, like we have in the other function, like use component, it'll take something, it'll look at it, and it'll go like, okay, I'm returning, this is the value, false or not, whatever, that's it. That's the end of the story. The next time you run the function, unless you're doing something horrific with global variables, it will be completely fresh, right? Memento style. It has no memory of what went on like 5 seconds before. But yield is kind of the opposite. Funnily enough, because it's used in functional, which is supposedly stateless, what yield does is the function basically keeps a state of where it was. So it will run, and then the next time it's run, it will know what state it was in before. So if you want something like, say, give me each child kind of function, so that every time you run it, it gives you the next child, that's what yield does, right? And it's pretty useful to generate lists or to iterate over things so that you can run like for something in each input, my mob, whatever, yield. That's all I'm gonna say about it. That's why I use it. If I have to write Python, I like Python that is somewhat functional. Declarative Python, terrible idea, but functional Python, not a terrible idea. So for something to be input, what I want to do is, okay, if mob, if is component mob, so I'm gonna start suggesting things in the argument. If it is a component mob, then we want our loop. Otherwise, we yield none, and there's no states. Nope, we don't even yield. So if we don't yield, it means it should not advance any iteration that goes on it. Sorry, again, I gotta like get my bearings again with Python. Now, we want child iteration. This MIT scene, I don't love it, but it probably will work for this case. It doesn't really matter. So it should be MIT dependency node, or is there an MIT DAG? Let's see, MIT dependency node. Traversal the nodes in Maya dependency graph. No, MIT dependency graph. Iterate over dependency graph nodes or plugs. There, so which is what a, where is the MIT mesh polygon? Seriously? So I remember MIT DAG, there you go. So these are iterators. I don't love them. Normally I roll my own, but let's not go crazy. Someone in chat was saying MIT DAG, look up. Yeah, I should, yeah, whatever. Alphabetical order. It's hard. Depth. So this tells you the thing I don't like about this is you have to have conditionals to break it. Now, no, I don't like it. I just really do not like it. Because what you have to do with MIT Doug is basically say, okay, do a depth, do a breadth first. So go, if you want to find all children or something, I have these, say something that has a few children. what have I got? Something like this, right? If you have MIT DAG, you can tell it, go depth first, means like it visits these, has no children, moves on to these, has no children, moves on to these, and then you go like, okay, one down, oh, no more children, goes up, bread, down, 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 down. So that's the order. Bread first means you'll do these, then these, then these, then these, then these, okay? So you have to set it to run bread first, then because once it gets here, it will want to visit this because it'll do the breadth and then it'll do the depth for each of the bread steps. Then you have to basically every step go like, oh, what depth you at? Oh, you got to a depth more than 2. So I want a shallow iterator, which means I'm gonna do my own. Not even that. I mean, so if it is a component, then I want fn equals 2 dot mfn dagnode component mob. Okay, so chow count is fn dot num children, tempted to say. I need to set up the autocompletion. I don't know why this has been such a miserable experience, because I was using same settings and everything I've been using somewhere else with much greater success, but whatever, I'll figure it out some other time. So in mfn dagnode, no children count has chow count. So something else is num children. Probably arrays. And this being Python, it probably is a method and not a property. So chow count, and then you want for I in range. Normally I would use X range in Python 2.7, but we're trying to be a bit Python 3 friendly, which I recommend because VFX platform has finally confirmed that CY 2020, the platform for the next calendar year, CY being calendar year, is going to have Python 3. There is a poop storm coming. You can see the edges of the poop storm coming your way if you write in Python. You should defend against it. So for I in range chow count, so if it doesn't have children, this should not run at all, which is what we want. Then working just to check Python interpreter is set to MyAPI. Yes, Python interpreter is set to MyAPI and the linter works right and all of that. I don't know. I'll look it up later because I got this working. Like I've been working with it for a bit on another project and I had no issues. It might be because I'm 2 directories down and it's not finding the env. So if I copied the .env and restarted it, it probably will work at a guess. Something silly like that. I'm not crazy about how Python and other things work. Import OpenMy2 zone 2. Yeah, that's what we're using. But it's like no API module named Maya, right? It's like it's probably not finding the env because it's one up. I'll check it later. It doesn't really matter all that much right now. So child should be the one that takes an index for the child and gives back an M object, which is what we want. So child I, and we go, come on, child mob equals that. Then if onto mfn dagnode child mob dot name, no, what, so much hate, ends with input. Now you always run a little bit of a risk when yielding an object instead of an object handle, but not huge in this case. So for now we're gonna keep things simple. Now for outputs, I would expect the same thing to work. So this is a shallow 1D iterator. That's all it takes. This is over indented, because indenting, it's hard. Iter input, iter output. So do we have breakpoints on codecs? Oh, I don't want a codex. Ah, there you go. That's why I was... Yeah. Anyway, I thought this would have been my default. Doesn't matter. So again, you know, I'm gonna maybe it's like our debugging is over, bro. I'm just trying to get across how convenient it is to have these things. Chow name. It's possible that the debugger will actually give us the result at this stage, but this is where instead of a print, sometimes you have to compromise on the debugger and you catch things with a variable, even if you could inline. Do we care for that? Probably we do. So let's do it. So child name equals that. And then we can go child name. Now the other thing we're gonna do is replace up to that point. That seems legit. So we got a couple breakpoints in there. The test remains the usual super simple stuff where given a component, and this should be pretty resilient to stuffs, it should completely skip things that are not a component, and we're breaking after the fact. So that should go okay-ish. Let's try it. I think we got this. So we're getting mob. Then what we want is for each input in what we call that iter input. Do we need? We imported it as snips or whatever. This is snips dot iter input. Sure. We could do, sure. Print, sorry, it took me a second to decide what I wanted to do. Onto mfn dagnode hin.name. Some printing is okay. Now, okay, so is this running anything? Given a component, bunch of things that should fail. Want a couple components, one that doesn't have an input, one that has both, and in the foot we only have input. No, what was it? We did have, I thought we had something in the foot. Like the foot was supposed to be input only, but no, it goes out to the leg. So, and the leg, whatever. We don't strictly need something that doesn't have an output. But if you were building a test suite, then that might not be a bad idea. So attach the debugger and please run. So this is not reaching where it should be. For reaching snips iter input, which means I would like to break sooner, please. Still not. Have I? So this is saved, and it should be picked up. Let's see. Are you doing anything? Oh, there's an error. Okay, fair enough. Iter input takes exactly one argument, 0 given. You make a solid point, Maya. I will not berate you for these. And I should have left the error thingy. Better. Is it gonna work? Is it gonna blend? So okay, it's halted. It's a good start. Wherein it's telling us chow count 5 children. Great. Chow mob, chow name. See, you get to see chow name. So here's something that you want. Watch. Like this is always gonna get you all the variables in scope. Sometimes you want to watch one specifically. So in this case, we care about seeing what the chow name is, and then you can do a bunch of stuff in there. But I know Visual Studio better than I know VS Code. What else do we care about? Chow name. That's pretty much it, really. Like the only one we want to watch closely is that, and leg input, leg output. So you can see how, okay, it's going over another object and it's going like, okay, output, it doesn't yield, right? Control doesn't yield, guide doesn't yield. That's cool. So that seems to have not gone too bad. And it's printed on the input here. Now there's one thing that I do have to admit puzzles me a little bit. That I'm not getting the input, but again, I suspect that my settings are not as good as I had them before. And I'll look at that off stream. So, how long we've been going for? Yeah, I reckon we can finish the input output. Then stop again and then do a quick other iterator and then call it. 3 streams in one. This component, each input, each output. So I don't mind what we got here. Let's also test each output. It's considerably slower in terms of like how fast we've been going, but then I want to, sorry, it's considerably, I should finish my sentences. It's considerably slower than where I want it to be, but it's also not terrible. So we got that running, you know, and it's yielding on an input, which is great. And you can still see the watch in there because nothing has changed it. And it's not yielding on anything else. So the other thing you can do if you really care for it is do chow count and I, so you know where you're at, which, you know, is another thing I kind of like. Name I is not defined. And I also think like you can do something like if you want to know the limit in example, I think you can put simple arithmetic in here. Yeah. So that if you want to see, hey, I'm at 0 for like you wanted index, you can do something like that. It's pretty standard fare for a debugger. So it only yielded on the output if we've done it right. Yeah, whatever. Now we can let it go. So it's working on both the input and the output, and we got input, output, output. So that's great. We got something going. So the only thing we need to add now is, and again, we're talking about what rules are we establishing. That's why I'm saying like this is instrumenting the rig. So a huge part of instrumentation is setting standards and guidelines and things like that. What I was saying that I don't super love, but it's kind of okay, is that if something is a child of the output and we might want to introduce additional rules, then that is also a valid output. So it can reach out to something else, right? So beside what we've allowed with attributes, I would have preferred like what I normally do, which is you allow an array of matrices and you only use that instead of having multiple nodes like that and needing DAG entries, but nor here nor there. We're gonna deal with our choices. It's not a mistake, it's just a choice, and I don't have a very strong reason to not love it. But we have not done that in the input. I believe that the input is attributes only. So in output, what we're interested in is, if it's this case, we want to yield the child mob, and then we also want to yield all of its children, right? Now, if we want to yield all of its children, we don't want, you know, some particularly shallow thing, and depth first is probably a good idea, and some speed is probably a good idea. then MIT DAG becomes a less bad idea, right? So MIT DAG documentation, speak to me and tell me, wow, that was a sibilant ass right in the mic. I hope I didn't pierce any eardrums with that. Speak to me softly and tell me. I think this is the first time in I don't know how long that I've used MIT DAG. I don't love it. But in this case, it's probably okay. So what it wants is probably, it's like very, it makes a lot more sense in C or C++. Having iterators like these where you go like, while not is done, you know, do something. So I remember it, like, does it have, like, can you construct it from the object is what I'm wondering. Is that return the node is number probably easier to do it than anything else. So in C++, you can look at the documentation for construct. That was another sibilant one. In C++, you can actually look at the constructors and know more precisely how to go about things. So I assume that I can build it from the object. So chow mob. Okay, let's shield ourselves. Max equals 100 in case we do something silly. While no, not C++. While either Doug is done, not, please move to the next item. And to return current item, is this the one that's, I thought this was deprecated. Anyway, return same object. Iter dot current item. We want to yield that right away. Like we start the iterator. Does it start on itself or does it start on the next one? So this is where we probably could look at the name. So dbg name equals om2. Does it make, sorry, it's like I've kind of like talking to myself more than anything. Does it still make does it still make sense what we're doing now? mfn dag node current node equals dbg name equals onto mfn dag node current node dot name. This is for debug purposes. Then we yield, no, don't do that. We yield the current node and we advance to the next object. So yes, this is not used, thank you, I know. Wow, not that. And I don't need that. Sorry, it's like this is just guarding the loop in case for some reason we get ourselves into an infinite loop. I don't want to deal with a Maya crash and losing what we have up there and all of that. So I'm guarding the while. Now I is there and it's getting incremented, and this while only happens while I is less than 100. Could even make it 10, doesn't matter. So the current node is whatever we're getting from the iterator, then it's yielded. We can look up the name. Just before the yield, we could debug Stop that. Okay. I don't want this debug anymore. I don't want this debug anymore, but I do care for that. And your breakpoints are here if you haven't noticed. So that seems okay. Current node DBG name, so laborious. So God node is the only one we have, and we're testing for the error value error. What am I forgetting? No matching constructor found. There you go. Is that for the iterator? Of course it's for the iterator, because it will be too convenient. So I have to create it and then reset it to the object? Jesus. Maybe it only takes a DAG path, I don't know. Maya. What ifs? So, so it's told us God node output twice, and then master common end. So the output being twice means that the iterator starts on itself, right? So and that's a given, we know that. Do we really need to advance it? That's why I don't love this thing. Anyway, sorry, it's like this. Sure, do that. Don't even need a debug, do I? The guard has demonstrated that it's not necessary. It's the breakpoint is moved. But let's do it. Oh, so many Sibilant tests. Sorry for that. Let's do it anyway, just in case. Okay, so it's lost control. What we want is, tell me this has got good shortcuts. No, it's not got good shortcuts, because whatever. You have to select and delete things one by one because this is VS Code and not Visual Studio. And DBG name is what I want. So output master SRT. What else do we want? Just an I. So I0, that means at least we know that it's the first one, right? It's starting from master SRT. So move on. Com SRT, which is our second, and SRT, which is our third. And then it keeps iterating thingies. Cool. Okay, so we got full iteration. DBG name we don't need any longer. We should have lost. No, we haven't. Okay, we can stop guarding the loop. So we got iter input, iter output, and it's like 1 hour for 60 lines of code, but whatever. We can stop debugging. Save this thingy for now. Okay, so YouTube, I am gonna close this one here because we got enough done. It's supposed to be a scripting marathon. Now we can select things and know if they are a rig. We can know if they are a component, and from a component we can iterate everything. Now there's, we're gonna work off the selection for now. Once we'll get to the consumption stage, we'll want something that, given a scene context, can iterate all possible rigs. It's not too hard to do. We just have to figure out something that identifies the existence of a rig, and that's it. So what else do we have? I think we're okay with this one. So YouTube, I'm closing this episode here. If you're on the stream and you made it this far, thank you very much. We're still gonna go for a little bit longer, because the next thing we're gonna do is actually looking at the port iteration and going from the boundaries inwards and isolating all parts of a component, which is really where I wanted to get. I think that's really the important part. Once we've done that, that's probably gonna be the end of the stream and the last of this triplet of episodes all done in one marathon, but we should have all the parts that we'll need for the export. All right, so if you're on YouTube, thank you for watching. If you're on the stream, stay around because I'm gonna take a 5 minutes break to stretch a little bit and then we are gonna go again. Thank you and have a good one.